Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm going to be talking about some new Finetec palettes that are available at simonsystamp.com. And big thank you to Simon for sending these along to me so that I could review them and share my thoughts and experience with all you guys. Before we get into these palettes, I'm going to share some Finetec history with you so that you know what's going on. So Finetec watercolors were originally manufactured or are manufactured by a company in Germany called Coloro, and I know I'm saying that wrong, so please forgive me. But Coloro has been manufacturing these for quite some time. They are the original manufacturers of these Finetec watercolors, and they started out with some larger pans. This is the history as I know it, so it could be wrong, but I'm just going to tell you my history with them. They started out with these round pans that have a white color, and they can be removed from a palette and then put back in. You can purchase individual colors if you run out of one, like that one in the middle I've hit the bottom on. And they also have some other palettes that have a smaller pan, so it's a smaller amount of color, but it's in a black casing and you cannot replace the pans. So if you run out of color, you're out of luck, you're going to have to buy a whole new palette. And they have a couple other different color combination options with those. So that was the lineup for as far as the pearlescent to iridescent colors up until a few months ago when Coloro decided to start distributing some color combinations, some new colors in different combinations. So there are 5 different palettes. I purchased mine from John Neal Booksellers, and they're really, really great colors. They have the same white circular pan that can be replaced if you need to replace a color, and they're really, really beautiful colors. My one complaint with these is that there are a lot of colors that repeat from palette to palette. So if you want every single color, you do not need to buy all of the palettes, but you will have to do a little bit of research to figure out the colors that are unique to each palette. So I swatched all of those as well as the original few palettes that have, the smaller pans as well. And so that's where Coloro stands. They are still distributing and selling with in Europe and throughout the world. However, these palettes were really hard to find and come by for US stores. So I think it was a couple years ago when the US company Alvin, who is an arts and crafts supply distributor, they purchased the rights to sell Finetec products within the US. And so they were selling all those same palettes until it was just the supply and demand was really, really hard to come by, and they were unable to keep up with that. So then they went to another manufacturer in Germany who it's on screen right now, but I'll just call them Seelig. They went to them to create some new palettes specifically for Alvin to sell. So these are the 3 new palettes from that other German manufacturer. And so they are the same Finetec quality. Some of the colors are even the same, but they are a little bit different in that they are in a metal palette. So it's nice sturdy metal palette, and also the pans inside are shaped a little bit differently. I think a while back Coloro also had this shape of pan, but they since moved to those circular white pans. But this Seelig and Alvin went back to the square black pans. So you can see the difference between the two. I believe it's the same amount of color in each pan. I'm going to let you look at them side by side. I think the black pan is a little bit deceiving when you hold them up like this because it almost looks like on screen that white pan, the white circular pan, is a little bit bigger. But when I was looking at them in person, I really couldn't see that much of a difference in size. So I think it's the same amount of color in each one. But the fun thing about these is that they're bigger than those really, really small ones that are in the black palettes. So that is what they look like side by side. So I'm going to go ahead and get into some swatches of these 3 new palettes. and show you what they're all about. The great thing about having these new palettes distributed by Alvin is that they're still the same great quality. In fact, in some cases, I think they're even more pigmented, but also the fact that they're able to get a hold of these palettes much more easily. So that means that US stores will be able to keep them in stock longer. They won't be as hard to find. I think it's going to be really good for Finetec sales in general. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch all of these colors for you. The way I like to use them is to put a couple drops of water and then let it sit for just a minute or two, and then come in with my brush and really swirl around and get all of that pigment mixing with the liquid, in this case water. So I'm going to go ahead and paint all of these colors. So as far as I know, Alvin, the US distributor, will not be selling those original palettes like in the plastic pans anymore, and plastic palettes. They're not going to be selling those anymore. They've moved on to these 3 new metal palettes. You can still purchase the colors individually and replace them as needed, but they will not be selling those original Finetec's anymore to US stores. There are some US stores that still have a relationship with Coloro, but so you can still get some there. But as far as making sure that you have legit Finetec product, either of those are fantastic. You could have the white circular pans or these square black pans. I think both are fantastic. They're both great quality. So I mentioned earlier that in some cases that these new ones from Alvin and from Alvin and Selig are a little bit better. I think it's because, like, especially on this crystal gold that's on screen right now, you can really see that shimmer going on. I found that these almost were a little bit more creamy. I didn't have to let the water soak in quite as long. They almost seemed more pigmented. So Alvin, in their information that they've given to stores, it says that they've increased the size of the pans, which is true. They're bigger than those smaller ones in the solid black palette. And also that the formula is better. And I think that's true. I think the formula has improved. I think I would only notice the difference, or I only noticed the difference because I had swatched that other set so recently as well, or those other sets so recently. If I only had one or the other, I probably wouldn't know that there was much of a difference. So if you are in Europe or elsewhere in the world and it's easier to get the Coloro sets, by all means go that route. If you're in the US and you're trying to find these, you could do this as well. So I wanted to mention that there's an iridescent set. That was that last set that I went over. And there's an amethyst and a sapphire blue in the 12 pearlescent and also in the 6 iridescent set, but they behave very differently. And that will be apparent once you see some white cardstock. So I've taken strips of white cardstock and added those colors on, and then I'll be adhering them down onto my swatches so that you can see the difference between having them painted on a black surface and having them painted on a white surface. So you can see with the pearlescent colors, there's not a huge difference. I mean, of course, it looks different because of the background, but the real one that had a real big difference is when it comes to the iridescent, because with the iridescent colors, there's almost no color at all. There's just a little bit of a pearly sheen on the white. You really have to put it onto a dark background to get all that color. So you can kind of see all of those right there. So these, the new palettes from Alvin, I find that the paints work well for brush lettering or on a pen or just painting. I think they're fantastic in all applications. And in some cases, I found these to be a little bit easier to use with a pointed pen or a metal pen nib, because they're a little bit more creamy and you don't have to use quite as much water. I found that they stick to the pen just a little bit better. It doesn't want to slide off the pen and then not give you a really lengthy amount of time to write with them. And you'll see that here in a minute. I'm going to put it on a pointed pen and you'll see me write with it. But this Caribbean green is one of my most favorite colors. So if I was going to recommend which palettes to purchase, I would definitely recommend the 12 pearlescent set. That includes this Caribbean green and that crystal gold, and it's got some silver in there too. It's a nice range of colors with the metallics as well. So I would recommend the 12 set would be a great basic purchase for everyone if you are unfamiliar with Finetec now and want to give it a try. If you are a letterer or a calligrapher, I would also recommend the 6 pearlescent set. That's the one with the copper and bronze and a couple gold shades and the champagne and silver. I think those are some really classic colors that are particularly beautiful for lettering. For crafters or artists in general, I would stick with this 12 set first, unless you're like me and suffer a bit from what we call full set syndrome, and you have to have the complete set of everything, which is obvious, after seeing all those palettes. Anyway, so you can see with the pointed pen that it writes beautifully. Just loading this up once, I was able to complete almost the entire 2-word phrase. I did have to add a little bit more here just to finish up that N on green, just because it was running out a little bit, but it really lasts a long time. So this is blue silver, and I really like this one too. It's really pretty. So those are my thoughts on these 3 new Finetec palettes. I think it's fantastic that these will be more readily available for those of us in the US, and that they are the same and in some cases even better quality than the older palettes. I think you really can't go wrong no matter what Finetec paints you buy. If you'd like to see more swatches and pictures of these 3 new palettes, head over to my blog. I have lots of pictures showing all of these in great detail. Thanks so much for watching today, and I will catch you guys in the next video.